First up, let's talk about how Wall Street ended. Now, US stocks, they ended lower on Friday. Investors booked some of the profits ahead of the long weekend. The S&P 500, that slipped about 0.6%, whereas Nasdaq, that dropped more than 1% to that 21,456 level. On the other hand, we had Dow Jones, which eased about 92 points or 0.2% to that 45,545 level. Now, this weakness was followed a week of record highs that we saw earlier in the week, fueled by strong Nvidia earnings and a resilient US economy as well. But fresh inflation data, that has kept sentiment cautious. Now, the core PCE index and the Fed's preferred gauge, that rose about 2.9% in July, which is its fastest pace since February. Now, despite this decline that we saw on Friday, the broader markets have managed to close August with solid gains. The Dow rose about 3%, the S&P 500 at nearly 2%, whereas the Nasdaq, that advanced more than 1.5%. For the S&P 500, in fact, this was the fourth consecutive monthly gain. Now, looking ahead, September will be very closely watched. Why? Because historically, it's been a weakest month for the Wall Street, with the S&P 500 averaging about that 0.7% decline. Now, the street will keep an eye on the upcoming Fed commentary, jobs data, and inflation prints to gauge the policy path going ahead. But next up, Ankita, how are things looking on the crude front?
Well, yes, crude prices fell on Friday as traders looked towards a weaker demand in the U.S. and the world's largest oil market, and the possible behind-the-scenes move towards a deal for a ceasefire in Ukraine. Now, remember, Brent crude futures for October delivery fell 50 cents or 0.7% to close in at $68.12 per barrel, while the WTI futures lost 59 cents or 0.9% to settle in at $64 a barrel. Now, the market has been in part shifting its focus towards the next week OPEC Plus meeting. And also, a couple of things to watch out for is that the crude output has increased from the organization of the petroleum exporting countries and its allies known as the OPEC Plus, and as the group has accelerated the output hikes to regain market share, raising the supply outlook and weighing on the global oil prices. But those increases have not made their way into the U.S. market, where the summer driving season ends with Monday Labor Day holiday, raising fears about lower demand in the U.S. And on the back of that, we do see the oil prices moderating a bit.
All right, so a little bit of moderation coming in for oil prices. But on that note, we'll take a very short break. Be right back with more.